In the humid town of Willow Creek, a struggling black single mother works tirelessly fixing bikes to support her daughter after her husband's sudden death. One day, a poor boy asks her to repair a bicycle, a keepsake from his father serving in the military. Though barely getting by, she fixes it for free. The act gets her fired. What she doesn't know is that a wealthy CEO was watching, and her life is about to change forever. Before we dive in this story, let us know where you're watching from. We love to hear your thought. The air in Willow Creek hung heavy with a humidity that seemed to press down on everything, even the spirits of its residents. For Sarah Jensen, a single mother navigating the often uncharted waters of grief and financial strain, this stifling atmosphere was a daily reality. 3 years had passed since a sudden silent attack on her husband Michael had stolen him away one crisp autumn morning while he was working at the local lumber mill. He'd simply collapsed, leaving Sarah with a 7-year-old daughter Emily and a collection of medical bills that piled up like fallen leaves, alongside memories that ached like phantom pains in a limb no longer there. The small life insurance payout had barely covered the funeral and outstanding medical expenses, forcing Sarah and Emily to move from their modest rented house to a compact 2-bedroom apartment in an older section of town. The rent was more manageable there, a thin silver lining, but the ceilings wept during every rain shower, leaving damp patches that mirrored the persistent anxieties in Sarah's own mind. Before Michael's passing, repairing bicycles had been a shared passion, a quiet pastime they enjoyed together in their small garage. Now that hobby had transformed into her sole lifeline. Chain reaction cycles had offered her a position, not out of any particular compassion for her circumstances, but because Mr. Thorne, the shop's perpetually stern owner whose face often took on a ruddy hue when stressed, recognized her exceptional talent. Sarah could, as he often put it, rebuild a transmission blindfolded. His chilling reminder, "I'm running a business, not a charity," echoed in the shop's stale air almost daily, alongside the familiar smells of chain grease, rubber, and the faint metallic tang of old tools. It was a phrase he'd invoke every time Sarah, out of sheer necessity, requested an advance on her meager paycheck. For 3 years Sarah had been the first to arrive, and the last to leave chain reaction cycles, never once uttering a complaint, even as Mr. Thorne consistently paid the male mechanics $2 more per hour, despite her demonstrably superior repair record. Her life had become a masterclass in stretching every dollar, in turning scarcity into a form of art. She would prepare vast quantities of hearty stew, enough to last for 3 full dinners, a practical alchemy against hunger. Emily's growing legs meant her pants frequently needed lengthening, a task Sarah accomplished with patient hand-stitched hems. Weekends were often spent picking up additional odd repair jobs, unofficial commissions from neighbors and acquaintances, a relentless pursuit of solvency. A coffee can, a humble vessel in her small kitchen, bore the handwritten label Emily's College Fund. Inside, nestled amongst scattered coins and folded bills, lay exactly $347.23. It was far from enough, a drop in an ocean, but it was a beginning, a fragile seed of hope. The most sweltering week of June arrived, clinging to Willow Creek like a second skin. It was then that Leo Miller, a thin 10-year-old boy, his eyes edged with a raw red rim of recent tears, appeared outside chain reaction cycles. He clutched the handlebars of a mangled Blue Horizon bike, a sight that suggested it had met the brutal force of a large vehicle. As Sarah would soon discover, that grim assessment was precisely accurate. "Can you fix it?" Leo's voice trembled precariously, barely a whisper, as Sarah stepped outside for her brief lunch break. The midday sun beat down, intensifying the already oppressive heat. "My dad gave it to me before he deployed. Mom says we can't afford a new one." Sarah knelt, the worn denim of her work pants rustling as she lowered herself to the boy's eye level, her gaze sweeping over the damaged bicycle. It was a limited edition Retro Horizon Strider, a model no longer in production, a true rarity. This particular one was custom modified, a unique testament to a father's love. Engraved handlebars bore Leo's name, delicate script etched into the metal. Decals displaying his father's military unit adorned the frame, small badges of honor. A distinct Army star, painted with meticulous care, graced the chain guard. The front wheel was a twisted ruin, bent beyond any hope of simple repair. The frame itself was contorted at an unnatural angle, a broken spine. The handlebars, once proud and straight, barely clung to the mangled frame. Tucked carefully beneath the seat, sheltered within a waterproof covering, was a small faded patch from his father's unit, a silent precious keepsake. "What happened, sweetheart?" Sarah asked, her voice soft, designed to soothe. "I left it at the end of our driveway, and Mr. Henderson's logging truck clipped it when he was making a delivery next door," Leo explained, his words tumbling out in a rush, as if narrating a terrible dream. A single tear escaped, tracing a clean path down his freckled cheek. "Dad spent months finding this exact model and customizing it for me. He said it's just like the one he had when he was my age, but made special just for me. It's one of the only things I have from him until he comes home." Sarah's gaze drifted through the grimy shop window. Mr. Thorne was inside, absorbed in a phone conversation, his back to them. She mentally assessed the wreckage before her. The required repairs would necessitate parts they simply did not keep in stock. Parts, Sarah knew with a sinking certainty, that Mr. Thorne would never authorize without upfront payment. Her own meager funds were already earmarked for rent and groceries, every dollar accounted for, every cent stretched thin. "I was supposed to ride it in the 4th of July parade," Leo continued, his voice heavy with disappointment. "Dad might get to watch on video chat if his unit isn't on patrol." Something deep within Sarah's chest shifted, a familiar ache blooming like a bruise. It was the same hollow feeling that resurfaced whenever she contemplated Emily growing up without Michael's cheering presence at her school plays, or the thought of her learning to drive without his steady guiding hand. Before she could consciously form the words, before her practical mind could interject with a list of reasons why she shouldn't, Sarah heard herself speak. "I'll fix it for you, Leo. Bring it around to the service entrance after we close at 6. Leo's face, moments before clouded with sorrow, instantly illuminated, a bright sudden beacon of hope. "Really? How much will it cost?" Sarah's mind, ever calculating, flashed to the unpaid electricity bill resting on her kitchen counter, the looming rent deadline, and Emily's wistful request for new sneakers for the upcoming school year, a simple desire that felt monumental. "Don't worry about that," she said, her voice gentle, as she reached out and ruffled his soft hair. "Just bring the bike." That evening, after Mr. Thorne had left for the day, and she had meticulously secured the front doors of the shop, Sarah unlatched the back entrance, allowing Leo to wheel his damaged bike inside. Under the harsh glow of the shop lights, she conducted a more thorough assessment of the mangled machine. Her mind, a precision instrument, began to compile a mental inventory of everything she would require. The front wheel was a complete write-off, an irreparable tangle of twisted metal. The frame, stubbornly bent, would necessitate straightening in their hydraulic press, a powerful, slow process. The handlebars, barely clinging on, would need to be replaced entirely. "I need to order some parts," she told Leo, her voice calm and reassuring. "Can you come back on Friday afternoon?" "But the parade is Saturday," Leo exclaimed, worry once again clouding his young face. "I know, buddy," Sarah replied, a promise in her tone. "I'll have it ready, I promise." After Leo departed, Sarah drove directly to Griffin's Hardware, a familiar utilitarian building that smelled faintly of sawdust and metal. There, she spent $83.47 of her precious grocery money on the specialized components Mr. Thorne simply didn't stock. It was nearly a full day's wages, gone on a bicycle that was by any reasonable measure not her responsibility. The specific parts for the limited edition Strider were particularly expensive, each piece seeming to weigh heavily on her conscience, yet she steadfastly refused to compromise on quality. Cutting corners was not in her nature, especially not when a child's hope was at stake. For the next 3 evenings, Sarah remained late at the shop, long after Mr. Thorne had gone home, the silence of the large space broken only by the quiet hum of the fluorescent lights. She meticulously rebuilt the Horizon bike, piece by painstaking piece, her hands moving with the practiced grace of a master craftsman. She straightened the frame, coaxing the stubborn metal back into alignment. She replaced the ruined wheel with a gleaming new one, carefully lacing and tensioning each spoke. The engraving on the handlebars, once threatened by the impact, she painstakingly restored, her fingers tracing the boy's name with an almost reverent touch. She even touched up the Army star on the chain guard with matching paint, blending it seamlessly, making the bicycle whole again. By Friday afternoon, the bike looked almost new, if not better, its special customizations perfectly intact, a testament to her dedication. When Leo arrived to collect it, his eyes widened with a pure, unadulterated disbelief that quickly transformed into an explosion of joy. "It looks better than before," he exclaimed, his small hand running reverently over the freshly painted frame. "Wait until I tell Dad." The boy was so utterly engrossed in his restored bicycle, so overcome with excitement, that neither of them heard the front door of the shop creak open. "What the hell is going on here?" Mr. Thorne's voice, sharp and accusatory, sliced through the workshop's quiet like a bullwhip. Sarah spun around, her heart thudding, to find her boss standing in the doorway, his face contorted into a mask of furious anger. "Mr. Thorne," she began, attempting to explain, "I was just using my shop, my equipment, and company time for free repairs." Mr. Thorne cut her off, his voice rising in volume. "After I've specifically told you we don't do charity work. I paid for all the parts myself," Sarah explained, her voice steady despite the burgeoning knot of dread in her stomach. "And I did most of the work after hours." "Most but not all," Mr. Thorne retorted, his gaze burning with accusation. "I checked the security footage. You've been working on this during your lunch breaks for days." He then turned his harsh gaze to Leo. "Take your bike and go, kid." Leo looked at Sarah, uncertainty clouding his young eyes. She offered him a reassuring nod, a silent signal, and he wheeled the bicycle towards the door, pausing only to whisper, "Thank you, Miss Jensen." Once Leo was gone, Mr. Thorne spun back to Sarah, his anger barely contained. "I've overlooked a lot, because you're a decent mechanic, but this crosses the line. When you're on my clock, you work on paying jobs, period. That boy's father is serving overseas," Sarah said, her voice remaining steady, though her hands trembled slightly. "Not my problem, Mr. Thorne interrupted, his face hardening. "What is my problem is an employee who can't follow simple instructions. Clear out your toolbox. You're fired." Sarah, caught in the painful intensity of the moment, hadn't noticed the small crowd of customers who had gradually gathered by the service counter, drawn by Mr. Thorne's increasingly loud voice. Among them stood a tall man in his 50s, dressed in a faded denim shirt, quietly observing the entire confrontation with an almost unnerving calm. As Sarah, her hands shaking, began to pack her tools, her mind frantically calculating how long her last paycheck could possibly stretch, the man approached Mr. Thorne. "Excuse me," he said, his voice carrying the easy confidence of someone accustomed to being heard, "but I've been waiting for someone to look at my bike chain." Mr. Thorne's demeanor shifted instantaneously, a jarring change from his previous fury. "Of course, sir, let me get one of our mechanics right on that." "Actually," the man interjected, glancing directly at Sarah, "I was hoping she could take a look. I watched her work just now. She's got a real touch with these machines." "I'm afraid Miss Jensen no longer works here," Mr. Thorne stated stiffly, his voice tight with a mixture of pride and frustration. "That's a shame," the man replied, a note of genuine disappointment in his tone. "In my experience, people with that kind of skill and heart are hard to find." He extended a business card to Mr. Thorne. "Arthur Caldwell. I own Caldwell Manufacturing over in Meadowville." Mr. Thorne's eyes widened slightly at the name. Caldwell Manufacturing was, after all, one of the largest employers in the entire state, a titan in the local economy. "Why don't you reconsider your decision?" Arthur Caldwell suggested, his gaze unwavering. Mr. Thorne glanced from the prestigious business card to Sarah, clearly torn between his stubborn pride and the desperate desire not to alienate a potentially significant customer. Pride, unfortunately, won the internal battle. "I'm afraid that's not possible, Mr. Caldwell. Company policy." Arthur Caldwell nodded thoughtfully, a small knowing smile playing on his lips. "I understand, policies are important." He then turned his full attention to Sarah. "Miss Jensen, was it? When you're finished here, I'd like to speak with you outside." 15 minutes later, Sarah emerged from chain reaction cycles for the very last time, her heavy toolbox clutched tightly in her trembling arms. Arthur Caldwell leaned casually against a sleek black pickup truck in the sun-drenched parking lot, a picture of quiet composure. "That was quite something in there," he observed, as she approached. "I'm sorry you had to see that," Sarah replied, a blush of embarrassment rising on her cheeks. "Don't be," he countered, his voice firm. "I saw a master craftsman and a person of character." He nodded towards her toolbox. Need a ride home? Under normal circumstances Sarah would never, under any pretense, accept a ride from a complete stranger. But something in Arthur Caldwell's direct honest gaze, an unspoken understanding, told her she could trust him implicitly. Besides, the thought of walking 5 long blocks with her heavy toolbox, under the oppressive weight of the June heat, was truly daunting, a small exhausting prospect on top of everything else. "That would be very kind, thank you," she said, her voice laced with gratitude. During the short drive to her apartment building, Arthur Caldwell inquired about her background, asking how she had acquired her impressive bicycle repair skills. "My husband taught me," Sarah explained, a soft ache in her voice as she spoke Michael's name. "He could fix anything with wheels. After he passed, it became more than just a hobby." "And the boy with the bike?" Arthur Caldwell probed gently. "Leo," Sarah confirmed, "his dad's deployed with the army." That bike was special to both of them. A limited edition retro Horizon Strider that his father customized just for him. The man spent months tracking down that exact model, then added all these personal touches, engraved handlebars, unit patches, the works. "It's practically irreplaceable." Arthur Caldwell nodded thoughtfully as he pulled up to her apartment building, his gaze distant, as if lost in thought. "You know, when I was Leo's age, I had a Horizon Strider just like that one. Not the fancy customized version, but that same model. Used it on my paper route, earned my first dollars on that bike." He reached into his pocket and handed her a crisp business card. "If you're looking for work, Miss Jensen, give me a call." Sarah took the card, her fingers brushing against the embossed logo and the bold title beneath his name, Arthur Caldwell, CEO. "Thank you, Mr. Caldwell," she said, "but I'm not looking for charity." "Neither am I," he replied, a warm smile spreading across his face. "I'm looking for skilled people who understand that business is about more than the bottom line. Think about it." That night, long after Emily had finally drifted into a deep sleep, Sarah sat at her small kitchen table, the cluttered surface barely visible beneath a mounting pile of bills. Without her job, they had perhaps 3 weeks, maybe a little more if she was incredibly frugal, before they would face the very real threat of eviction. The local news played softly on the ancient television in the corner, its muted drone a mere background noise, a futile attempt to distract from her relentlessly racing thoughts. And now, the anchor's voice suddenly announced, cutting through the general quiet, a local story that's catching attention online. Sarah's head snapped up, her exhaustion momentarily forgotten. To her utter horror, there on the screen, was cell phone footage of her confrontation with Mr. Thorne. One of the customers, a silent observer in the shop, must have recorded it. The clip showed Mr. Thorne yelling, his face contorted in anger, followed by Sarah's calm, measured explanation about Leo's father and the special, customized bicycle. The footage then abruptly ended with Mr. Thorne's dismissive, chilling line, "Not my problem." "The video has been shared thousands of times," the anchor continued, a note of surprise in her voice, with many commenting on the limited edition restored Horizon Strider visible in the background, the mechanic's kindness, and the shop owner's shocking response. The anchor then added, "We're working to identify the individuals involved." Sarah lunged for the television, turning it off with a sharp click. Her face burned with a humiliating heat. The last thing she needed was to become some viral sensation, a fleeting public spectacle, when her entire focus should have been on the desperate urgent search for a new job, any job. She stumbled into bed with a pounding headache, praying that the story would quickly fade from the public's notoriously fickle attention. Sleep came fitfully, a fragmented mosaic of restless thoughts, punctuated by anxieties about bills, about Emily, about the daunting stack of job applications that awaited her. She had finally, mercifully, fallen into a deeper slumber when the shrill, insistent ring of her phone jolted her awake, a sudden jarring intrusion into the pre-dawn quiet. The bedside clock, its digital glow a faint blue, read 5:47 a.m. A faint pearly light was just beginning to filter through the thin worn curtains, painting the room in pale grays and blues. "Hello?" she answered, her voice thick with sleep. "Jensen?" It was Mrs. Evans, her elderly neighbor from the first floor. Mrs. Evans, usually a woman of quiet routine, sounded agitated. "I'm sorry to wake you, dear, but there's something you should see outside. There are people gathering in the parking lot." Nice people, and very nice cars. One of them asked me if this is where Sarah Jensen lives. What? Sarah sat up abruptly, her sleepiness instantly banished, replaced by a surge of adrenaline. Who are they? I'm not sure, dear, but there must be at least a dozen, Mrs. Evans whispered, a note of awe in her voice. One gentleman said something about millionaires. Millionaires, Sarah repeated, certain she had misheard, her mind struggling to reconcile the word with her humble reality. Yes, that's what he said, Mrs. Evans confirmed, her voice barely audible. There are 17 millionaires outside waiting to speak with Miss Jensen. I thought you should know before Emily wakes up. Thank you, Mrs. Evans, I'll be right down. Sarah threw on a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, her movements quick and jerky, her mind racing. She swiftly braided her hair, a familiar automatic motion, then peeked into Emily's room to ensure her daughter was still deeply asleep before hurrying downstairs. What she saw in the parking lot made her stop short, momentarily freezing her in place. At least a dozen expensive vehicles, ranging from gleaming luxury sedans to imposing high-end pickup trucks, were parked in a neat semicircle around the apartment building's entrance. Men and women, all impeccably dressed in business casual attire, stood in small hushed groups, conversing quietly among themselves. In the very center, distinct and recognizable, stood Arthur Caldwell, who offered her a warm, inviting smile when his gaze found her. Miss Jensen, he called out, walking towards her, his stride confident and unhurried. I hope we didn't wake you too early. Mr. Caldwell, Sarah replied, her voice tinged with bewilderment. What is all this? These are friends of mine, he said, gesturing with a broad sweep of his hand to the gathered crowd, his eyes twinkling. We're all part of a small foundation called the Community Catalyst Fund. Each of us, at a critical moment in our lives, was helped by someone who expected absolutely nothing in return. Now, we strive to do the same for others. A woman in her 60s, elegant and composed, stepped forward, her silver hair pulled back neatly. Evelyn Cole, she introduced herself, her voice gentle yet firm. I own Cole Orchards. 40 years ago, a kind mechanic fixed my delivery truck for free when I couldn't afford the repairs. That act of kindness saved my first harvest. When Arthur showed us that video of you last night, I knew we had to come. One by one, the others introduced themselves, their names echoing through the quiet morning. They were a diverse group, successful business owners, shrewd entrepreneurs, and influential executives from across the state. Each shared a brief, poignant story of a time someone had extended a hand, offering help when they were at their lowest point. Some had received crucial financial assistance, others invaluable mentorship, but all had profoundly benefited from an unexpected, selfless act of kindness. We've been pooling resources for years to help people like you, Arthur Caldwell explained, his voice resonating with sincerity. People who consistently do the right thing, even when it costs them everything. I appreciate the gesture, Sarah said, her voice still laced with disbelief, but I'm not looking for a handout. Good, replied a tall man who had introduced himself as the owner of a regional trucking company, a slight smile on his face. Because we're not here to give you one. We're here to invest in you. Invest, Sarah repeated, the word sounding foreign, almost impossible, in her current situation. Arthur Caldwell nodded, his gaze steady and direct. You see, Miss Jensen, after our conversation yesterday, I did some research. You're not just good with bikes, you're truly exceptional. Your repair success rate at Chain Reaction was 17% higher than the industry average, and customers specifically requested you by name. Sarah blinked in genuine surprise. Mr. Thorne had never, not once, shared that information with her, preferring to keep her in the dark about her own value. We have a proposition, Arthur Caldwell continued, gesturing towards a thick folder another member of the group was holding. First, a gift, no strings attached, enough to cover your expenses while you consider the second part of our offer. Sarah took the envelope, her fingers clumsy, and carefully opened it. She nearly dropped it when her eyes fell upon the cashier's check inside. It was an astronomical sum, more money than she had seen in one place since Michael's life insurance payment. I can't accept this, she whispered, her voice barely audible. You already have, Evelyn Cole said with a gentle knowing smile, her eyes warm. The check is made out to you, and none of us will take it back. Consider it recognition for 3 years of being underpaid for your extraordinary skills. And the second part? Sarah asked, her mind still reeling, struggling to process the enormity of the moment. Arthur Caldwell gestured to the folder, now open, revealing architectural renderings and business plans. We want to fund a new business, a community bicycle shop, right here in Willow Creek. A place where quality repairs are done at fair prices, where kids can learn valuable skills, and where no child is ever turned away because their family can't afford to pay. With you as the owner and head mechanic, added another member of the group, a woman with kind eyes. We provide the startup capital, you provide the expertise and the heart. Why would you do this? Sarah asked, overwhelmed by the sheer generosity and the unexpected scale of the offer. You don't even know me. We know what matters, Arthur Caldwell replied, his gaze encompassing all of them. That video showed us everything we needed to see. A town that would let someone like you go is a town that needs you more than they realize. Sarah looked at the faces around her, successful individuals who she now understood had once been in positions similar to hers, people who truly understood the sting of struggle and the profound transformative value of unexpected kindness. For the first time since Michael had died, she felt the immense crushing weight on her shoulders begin to subtly, undeniably lift. A lightness she hadn't known was possible bloomed within her chest. I don't know what to say, she admitted, tears stinging her eyes. Say you'll consider it, Arthur Caldwell urged, his voice gentle. Take the day, talk to your daughter, think it through. We'll meet again tomorrow to discuss details, if you're interested. As the group prepared to depart, their expensive vehicles humming quietly to life, Sarah noticed a small figure standing on the apartment building's front steps. Emily was watching, wide-eyed, still in her pajamas, her curiosity piqued by the unusual morning gathering. Mom, she called out, her voice a sleepy whisper, what's happening? Sarah beckoned her daughter over, pulling her close and wrapping an arm around her small shoulders. Remember when I told you that your dad always said kindness matters more than money? Emily nodded slowly, her eyes still on the departing cars. Well, Sarah continued, a hopeful smile gracing her lips, sometimes, kindness finds its way back to you. Later that same day, as Sarah and Emily sat at their small kitchen table, eagerly discussing the incredible, life-altering offer, a soft knock sounded at their door. Outside stood Leo and his mother, a homemade thank you card clutched in Leo's hand, and a small fragrant apple pie nestled in his mother's arms. We saw you on the news, Leo's mother explained, her eyes filled with gratitude. We wanted to thank you properly, she then added, a note of wonder in her voice. Leo's bike video has over 1 million views now. People are calling chain reaction cycles, asking for the mechanic who helped the soldier's son. Leo piped up, a mischievous grin on his face. Mr. Thorne seems pretty upset about the whole thing. Sarah couldn't help but laugh, a genuine, unburdened sound. I bet he is. What will you do now? Leo's mother asked, her gaze curious. I heard some rich folks showed up here this morning. Sarah looked at Emily, who was already showing Leo the preliminary sketches they'd made for the new bike shop. The drawings included a vibrant, dedicated learning area for kids, a place where they could get their hands dirty and learn the mechanics of bicycles. And on one wall, Emily had carefully drawn a space dedicated to military families, a place of honor. I'm going to build something, Sarah said, her voice imbued with a newfound confidence, a quiet, resolute strength, something Michael would have been incredibly proud of. 1 year later, Horizon Spokes celebrated its grand opening on Main Street in Willow Creek, a vibrant new fixture in the community. The shop boasted a state-of-the-art repair center, gleaming tools and organized workstations. It also featured a thriving youth apprenticeship program, where local kids, just like Leo, could learn the valuable skills of bicycle repair. A fleet of meticulously refurbished bikes, given new life, were available at low or no cost to families in need, ensuring that every child in Willow Creek had access to the joy of cycling. On a wall of honor, prominently displayed near the entrance, hung a single pristine limited edition Horizon Strider, its custom engravings and military decals perfectly preserved. It had been lovingly donated by Leo's family after his father had returned safely from deployment, a testament to a story that had touched so many. Beneath it, a simple, elegant plaque bore an enduring message: for those who believe kindness matters more than money. Arthur Caldwell had been right. Sometimes doing the right thing felt like it cost everything, a painful, insurmountable sacrifice. But sometimes, if you were lucky enough, if the stars aligned in just the right way, that kindness found its way back to you, giving you back even more than you could have ever imagined. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.